This is the Into the Paddock podcast.
Is it an over-exaggeration to say that the British Grand Prix on Sunday was possibly the best Grand Prix there has been in the last 4 years? Maybe 3 years?
I think definitely in the last 2 years. I feel like a few of the races at Interlagos have been pretty freaking good. And this one just about lived up to that kind of level. So I'll definitely say the last 2 years for sure.
Genuinely, we've said before with Formula One races, even when they've been exciting, it's not been on the same level as the kind of exciting races that other championships put on, mainly because of a lack of actual wheel-to-wheel racing.
Yes.
We had that this time, and it was absolutely incredible. And I think that's a testament to, once again, the fact that it rained.
Mm-hmm.
Formula One still only seems to be genuinely good when it's raining, and only slightly raining. Like anything above what we had on Sunday, it probably would have been awful. But also due to the fact that I maintain that Silverstone is perhaps one of the tracks that fits Formula One in its current era the best, just in terms of corner types, the width of the track, multiple different lines and corners so that people don't have to run in each other's dirty air. I think everything... There's so much wrong with Formula One, but sometimes when everything aligns, when all the stars align, you're able to get a race like we had on Sunday. And it was actually, for the first time in a long, long time, I was literally on the edge of my seat for virtually the entire Grand Prix.
Are you feeling okay, Jordan? Because we're supposed to be absolute haters of Formula One. But no, I completely agree with you. This race was fantastic to watch. I'm glad I was able to watch it, instead of being like, oh, it's Silverstone, I'll just go back to sleep. They really put on a show and showed everyone what a pinnacle of motorsport could actually be if they did it on a more consistent basis. And I just want to say right off the bat, Bernie was right. Let's just put sprinklers at all these tracks so the racing can actually be good.
I think he was onto something. I really do feel that way. It was a fantastic, fantastic race. Formula One, right? We often get told it's the pinnacle and that they're the 20 best drivers in the world. And more often than not, I disagree. And we don't see that. However, that phase of the race where everyone was on dry tyres in wet conditions, you got to see a rare glimpse, I feel, of the true ability of these race car drivers. The skill they had to... Again, there was no safety car in this race. Throughout all of the chaos, all of the conditions, how tricky the cars were to drive at Silverstone of all places, everyone kept it on the island. And it was a phenomenal display of talent, which we hardly get to see in Formula One these days.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We really saw why these drivers are touted as the world's best in these changeable conditions. I mean, we spoke about WEC and the sports car drivers. We saw those people fly off the track in similar conditions. Same with IndyCar and IMSA and NASCAR. Like we see really, really good drivers struggle in these changeable wet conditions. And here, even though Silverstone, I will argue, has acres of runoff, both paved and unpaved, but still just the display that everyone put on just was phenomenal. And they were racing each other very, very hard in those conditions. Like just watching the McLaren scythe through, passing Max, then battling the Mercedes, and then trying to fend off each other. That was pure racing. It's such a rare instance where we get to see that in F1. It was great. I was munching my popcorn. It was great.
And the bravery, particularly of the McLaren drivers at that situation, because again, it was so treacherous, and yet the moves they were making, particularly Oscar Piastri, and this is again something I said during the Austrian Grand Prix with his moves around the outside of the likes of Sainz and Lando in the sprint. Again, Piastri's overtaking is something to behold. Around the outside of Russell, I believe it was, the loop in the first sector, and then the move at the end of the hangar straight. Now, again, no DRS at this point, so it's actual genuine overtakes, which was lovely to see. But that's where the rain was coming in, right at the end of the hangar straight. Stowe corner was where the rain started, and yet you had them barreling into that corner, lunging it up the inside with no idea how much grip was going to be waiting for them at the apex. It was just so tense, and it was fucking brilliant. You had this ever-looming threat of Max Verstappen just chunk after chunk of lap time over the final course of this race. And it was really ominous when he caught Lando Norris, because DRS was activated again, and it was far too powerful at Silverstone, as we realised, because Lando had no chance of being able to defend against Max Verstappen. He breezed by him, and at this point I'm thinking, well, this is it. He's going to breeze up to the back of Lewis, and that's going to be it. Once he gets to Lewis, there's going to be no stopping him. But then, I don't know whether Verstappen had maybe taken the edge off of his tyres at that point, or whether Lewis just upped his pace. But the amount that he was faster than Lewis started to reduce and reduce and reduce as the laps went on. And sure enough, final lap, Lewis managed to hold on to win by 1.4 seconds. That's how close it got at the end. And as a result, Lewis Hamilton won the Grand Prix, his first since 2021, just before that infamous Abu Dhabi race, his 104th Grand Prix victory. And I believe he is the first driver in Formula One history to have won a race after their 300th Grand Prix. The longevity of Lewis Hamilton's career, it's almost 17 years since his first, over 17 years since his first Grand Prix victory back at the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix. The man, you know, he there's been so many questions, and he said as much after the Grand Prix that there were periods over the last couple of years since 2021 where he doubted whether he still had the ability to compete at the level that he should be competing at. That race, and the ability to make the tyres last as long as he did at the end, his ability in the rain, that was vintage Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Record 9th time winning the British Grand Prix.
Another record.
You know, just he keeps on rewriting the history books. This is who would have thought? Like, if you asked us 2 years ago, we would have thought, oh, Lewis Hamilton wins the British Grand Prix, that we'd all be like, yes, he won. You know, versus be like, oh yeah, he's been winning all season. Like, this is the strange dichotomy of what we've had in F1 in the past couple of years since 2021. You know, like, this is, like you said, vintage Lewis Hamilton. He managed the race to perfection. He wasn't necessarily the fastest, but he was just fast enough. You know, the Jackie Stewart method of winning a race, you don't need to be the fastest, just win by an inch and you're good. So like the way he brought in the soft tire, even though he had the undercut on Lando, he still brought his soft tires in very nice and gently, so he was able to extend their lifespan versus Lando and Max, who just went full attack and kill for their stints. You know, Lewis was able to manage that gap, manage his tires, and make sure that he got there in the end. He pushed when he needed to and held back when he didn't. You know, and his racecraft on this way, like him and George racing each other earlier in the race, that was really great. You know, they mentioned on the broadcast that Lewis had a little bit more downforce on his Mercedes versus George, because he's like, oh, it's going to rain, I'm going to need this little bit more downforce. And that's when we saw him have that advantage over George, and then that also helped him keep pace with the McLarens to a degree after they got by, because, yeah, they were just fast. But I'm just glad that we had some good racing throughout this Grand Prix. There was no real instances of like BS, you know, shoving people off the track, you know, to make a position or anything. So I'm glad we had a clean race in that regard. And like you said, no safety cars. This race still had all the drama you could hope and wish for in any race.
This is the Into the Paddock podcast.